Hi, I'm FIDE Master Livy Cherbulenko, and in this series I explore the typical mistakes of people rated anywhere between 1000 and 2000. This is a first reaction, no engine analysis of a chess.com game played between 1633 versus 1682. Let's start. Alright, so e4, e6, the French defense. Bishop c4, not the main move. Usually we go like d4, acquiring the center, and then black goes d5, and now white has multiple moves. They can close the center, which is called the advanced or the close variation. They can take the pawn, which is the exchange variation, but it's like more drawish, or they can defend the pawn, right, by playing like either knight c3 or knight to d2, which is called the Tarrasch variation. Basically, the rule of thumb is this: if your opponent allows you, then put 2 pawns in the center. Like for example, if we play, if we just play like a passive move like d6 or like g6 or b6 or like a piece move, basically, if they don't put a pawn on like this rank, right, then acquire the center with both pawns. If you can, acquire with both pawns. If you cannot, then at least with one pawn. So for example, here, black did not play e5. So if they did not play e5, that means we can acquire the center with 2 pawns. That's the rule of thumb, okay? Bishop c4 is kind of weird to put the bishop against the f7, e6 pawn chain. This is like a barrier. So the bishop is not doing anything against this barrier. So it makes no sense. Like, what makes more sense is something like, let's say, d4, d5, e5, and then to put the bishop on d3 on this open diagonal where it is not blocked, it has a large scope, and it actually, attacks the h7 pawn, and eventually black will castle kingside and it will attack the king. But to put the bishop on c4 against a pawn barrier makes 0 sense. So bishop c4 already is inaccurate. But let's say d5 black plays, which makes sense. ed, attacking the bishop, bishop b3, pawn a5. Black just wanna win the bishop. Black also could have just played like c6 or let's say knight f6, yeah, and then like eventually black can play c6, and again this bishop will be stuck. Granted, white could improve his bishop eventually by playing like, let's say, d4 and then c3 and then rerouting the bishop to c2. But then the question is, why waste time? Why waste time on bishop c4, allowing black to play d5 with tempo, which d5 is useful for black anyway, right? Have a pawn in the center, but with tempo, and then go through b3, where again it is blocked, and then play c3, and then play bishop c2. It's all too like complicated. Why not just put it immediately on d3 behind the d4 pawn? That way we save like 3 tempo or something like that. Okay, so but let's see. So a5. a3, defending the bishop, makes sense. Although I would say maybe even more sense would have made maybe to play a move like c3. First of all, black now cannot even play a4 because we've opened up our queen, so a4 we just take. But another point is, even if we could, the second point would be again to create this, to reroute the bishop, to play bishop c2, pawn to d4, and then the bishop on c2 would be on this great c2 h7 diagonal, attacking h7. So I think c3 would have also made sense. But yeah, a3 maybe not the best, I think. But okay, a4 attacking the bishop, bishop a2, knight f6 developing the knight, knight f3. Okay, so far so good. Bishop d6 developing the bishop, pressuring here, preparing the castle, perhaps rook e8. All right, d4. Acquiring, right, occupying the center, opening up this bishop, maybe the bishop will go to g5, pinning this knight, okay. So far so good. Castles. Yeah, bishop g4, good move. So basically, in the French defense, black's worst piece is typically the c8 bishop. Why? Because most of his pawns are like light squares, especially the central pawns. Like, they might also play like c6, right? And like the d5 pawn is on the light square, so this bishop is typically like limited by his own pawns. Like, if you don't play bishop g4, basically if white manages to play, let's just make some move, let's say c6, and then white goes like h3, say, and like if they put the bishop on e6, that's basically like a big pawn. It's like just stuck. It's like just stuck against his own pawns, and it's like extremely limited. So it's like just a pawn. That's why it's like not very useful. So that's why usually if white can The best strategy is to limit the two best access squares for black. Basically, what do I mean? G4 and F5. We use H3 to limit the access to G4, and we usually use our bishop on D3 or like C2, yeah, like I showed you previously. White could have rerouted, or typically D3 to limit the access to F5. So H3 limits G4, and the bishop on D3, right, limits the access to F5. So that basically makes black play like bishop e6, which, like I said, is like a big pawn. It's like completely useless. He's just basically imprisoned by his own pawns, right? So that's usually the best strategy, right? Play h3 and put your bishop on d3 before black activates the bishop. Okay, because otherwise then it's just too late. So yeah, ideally white should have played h3 before. But the problem here is that if white plays h3 now, the problem is this rook e check. I know it's like kind of not ideal. You have like to play bishop e3, which now the bishop is a bit pinned. It's like stuck. So maybe like not ideal. But and like black can play like bishop f4, pin it, and like queen e7. Yeah, so that's why. Yeah. So yeah, should have done something else different, something different earlier. It should have, like I said, white wasted. So this is the problem. Like I said earlier, white wasted too many tempi with like this bishop c4. Bishop c4. Then black played d5 with tempi. Then bishop b3, and then you know, bishop h2 is like too many tempi wasted. Had white played simply bishop d3, you know, like I mean first d4 and then like put the bishop on d3 immediately, white would have had enough time to play h3. It basically would have been now white's move, and like white would have just played like h3 here, and white would have been fine. So that's why white did not manage, because of bishop c4. But okay, let's see. Bishop g4, yeah, makes sense, pinning the knight, especially now that this bishop is on the queen side, is isolated from the king side. It makes a lot of sense to pin this knight, because like if this bishop is close or here, you know, it's like easier to unpin. But with the bishop here, the pressure can be quite strong, potentially. But let's see. h3 attacking the bishop. Bishop h5. Pawn to c3, yeah, strengthening the center. Okay. Pawn to c6, again strengthening the center. Further, you know, limiting this bishop, like, you know, strengthening the barrier, yeah. Okay, bishop e3. I mean, more active would have been bishop g5. Why not put it on g5? If you're gonna activate the bishop, why not activate it to a more active square, you know? And when if h6, just go like bishop h4 and keep the pin. It's not like, oh, it's like a deadly pin or anything like crazy, but it's still a pin. It's still a bit uncomfortable for black, and you don't lose anything. So why not play like bishop g5, more active, and then just bring your knight to d2. And then once you bring the knight to d2, so the knight will be guarding this knight, then you can move a queen away from like this pin to like c2 or something, you know, and connect the rooks, right? Connect the rooks. Something like this, I think white should have played. e3 is the worst. It blocks the e file, potentially for your own rook, and the bishop, this is just called a big pawn. It's completely useless. So don't play like this. Alright, let's see, queen b6, attacking the b2 pawn. Okay. Oh my god, what? This is crazy. Yeah, this is crazy. Wow. I mean, if white want to defend the pawn, yeah, but it's not so easy. You see, this is the problem with all this stuff. Because now, like, if white plays here, yeah, but allows bishop takes f3, damaging the structure, but maybe we can survive. It's like not ideal at all. Poor bishop, poor development, poor bishop on h2, completely stuck. Like, look at white's both bishops. They're supposed to be like very strong minor pieces, stronger than knights. Long reach pieces. Does it seem like long reach? Completely blocked. Does this seem like long reach? It's completely blocked. Weak king, weak pawn structure, weak f4 square. So black would play something like, let's say, knight b7, bring the a rook to e8, closer to the center, to the king side, and then play knight h5, then play knight f4, for example, or like bishop f4. Use the f4 square, f4 outpost, because I can never play pawn g3, they don't have a pawn over g file, with clear advantage for black. I mean, if white plays precisely, maybe not necessarily clear, but no, it should be advantage for black. I think it's just that like if white plays very precisely, maybe white can withstand the pressure, maybe. But still, black should have an advantage. So yeah, and the same goes for queen c1. It's the same. Better to go back. Also, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of passive. Yeah, see, that's another reason for bishop g5. It would have discouraged queen b6, because then white can also damage his structure. Right? White can also damage his structure. So that would have discouraged. You know, maybe black would have played, let's say, h6 here, knight bd7. Yeah, but that gives us the time to play knight bd2, defend this knight. And now after queen b6, now we can play like here or here. And now this knight is defended, right? If bishop takes, just knight takes. So, yeah. But okay, let's see. Bishop back is quite funny. Okay, here. And now we block the bishop. Yeah, I mean, I do see the point. This way, at least, we don't damage their pawn structure. So it's not like it makes no sense. It definitely has a point, for sure. But definitely, this is a bad sign if you play bishop e3 and then bishop back to c1 and then knight bd2 blocking the bishop. This definitely is a bad sign. Definitely not ideal. But okay, let's see. Rook e8. Okay, bishop b1. Finally, white reroutes his bishop, yeah. But the bishop b1 makes sense. Rerouting the bishop, putting pressure here, and then from b1 maybe white could put the bishop on d3. Now d3 would be the optimal square. And in general, you want to put your bishops on central squares. Why is that? Well, the bishop on d3 simultaneously attacks two diagonals. That's why it's best to put the bishops like this, on central diagonals, where it controls central squares, where it controls two diagonals simultaneously. It also defends the e2 square, like, so that it prevents potentially rook e2 entrance squares, e2. But there's also another move, actually. There's also another rule of thumb. When your opponent has a pawn center, we always want to challenge the pawn center. We always want to make pawn breaks through the pawn center. So in this case, that would be c4, because that gives us dynamics, but gives us tactics, actually, like concrete threats. For example, here the threat is c5, if they do not take, attacking the queen and the bishop. But if they do take, then we just take with the knight, activating the knight with tempo, attacking the queen, attacking the bishop. We activate our knight. But also now there's no more pawn on d5, so now our bishop is completely open, attacking f7. You know, and then we can play maybe eventually knight e5, right, opening up this bishop. And then again attack, putting even more pressure on f7. So basically this gives us dynamics. You always want to have like attack, dynamics. Basically create scope for your pieces. For example, here, the position as it is right now, the bishop is completely blocked, immobile. The knight completely blocked by the d5 pawn, immobile. By playing c4, we at the same time basically activate our bishop indirectly, because there's no more d5 pawn, and activate our knight. So we create dynamics, we give our pieces scope. So you always want to look at moves like this, okay? Pawn breaks to the center, destroy your opponent's center, and create more scope for your pieces. I think this would have been very interesting. Yeah, c4. But okay, bishop b1, rook e7. So we just want to double up on the e file. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Queen c2, putting the queen in front. Yeah, that's a very rudimentary, simplistic approach, going for like this sort of attack. I mean, first of all, it's defended by the knight. Second of all, it's easy to defend 10 million ways. And thirdly, black could just play bishop g6 now. Just bishop g6, attack the queen and then take on b1. Like I was saying earlier, usually the light square bishop for black is like the worst piece, because of like, it's on the same color as the pawns. And although here it is more active, then it would have been like here or here or here. Yes, it is more active. But still, it's on the same color as most of his pawns. So still is like, and plus our pawns are on the opposite color. So he can never attack our pawns. So it's still not the best piece. It's potentially restricted by his own pawns and can never attack our pawns. Whereas our bishop is not restricted by any pawns and can potentially attack his pawns b7, c6, d5 in the endgame, right? It can attack his pawns. What's the difference? So you do not want to trade these bishops, ideally. If you can, this bishop is much better than this bishop. So you want to keep this bishop. Plus, the second reason is, most of white's pawns are on dark colors, which means automatically that the opposite colors are weak. You know, d3, c4, the light squares. The light squares are weak. So, and this bishop is a guardian. So if we trade this bishop against black's light square bishop, then who will guard the light squares? We'll have chronically weak light squares, c4, c2, e4, e2, right? And when they put a piece, we cannot take it. But if we keep our bishop, if they ever put like a knight or something on a light square, we can always use our bishop to take it. Okay, that's why it's very key. If you have too many pawns on one color, that means you have a complex of weak opposite colors, and you have to keep a bishop that guards these weak squares. Okay, so yeah, queen c2, yeah, just like bishop g6. I mean, just take our bishop. Yeah, complete waste of time. But let's see. Oh, what, hanging this pawn? I mean, I could have just played here. I mean, just take. Now white just has to go back, wasted a tempo, and now we can just take, and white has weak light squares, and I don't know, let's say rook b1, and now black would play, let's say, queen a6, defending the pawn, preparing rook here, but also the queen is, you know, attacking this square, or maybe potentially this square, d3, you know, looks quite good for black. But okay, let's see, rook, we play here, knight g, I mean, queen a2 would have been, queen a4 would have been fine, just win the pawn. Yeah, this would have been good. And then put the bishop on d3 to defend the e2 square, you know. And white is just up a pawn. And maybe again, maybe like c4, oops. Oops, wait, what is this? Maybe like c4 again with dynamics, threatening c5, and if we take knight c4, attacking the queen of the bishop, something like this. But white is just up a pawn. But let's see, white play knight g5, but again just bishop g6. Yeah, it's too simplistic an approach, but let's see, bishop e2. I mean, bishop e2 could also work, I guess. Yeah, this actually could also be quite good, actually. But at the very least, black can just always play bishop g6 again. Although here maybe it's not the same, because now white has, I forgot what black played rook 8. Now white has this, it's just up a pawn. But still, strategically, it is good for black to trade the bishops. But it's just like, white wins the pawn here, so it's an improved version for white, because he wins the pawn. But yeah, bishop e2, white, black found a very interesting move. White might actually lose material here. I'm curious how he played. Yeah, rook e1. If knight h7, the attack doesn't work, because now we can just take on f1, and if knight f6, knight takes back on f6, controlling h7, so there's no checkmate. And basically, king f1 is losing due to rook e1, and knight f1, well, black would just play, like, let's say, I don't know, maybe here or something, or some other move. But basically, black is up, what? I think an exchange, yeah? Yeah. So knight h7 doesn't work. Let's see, rook e1, but now bishop d3 should be winning, yeah? Yeah, bishop d3. Good move, attacking the queen and threatening rook e1. So double attack, yeah. Yeah, basically, if rook takes e7, then bishop takes e2. Rook a8, just knight e8. Game over. But let's see, queen takes d3, check, here. Yeah, basically similar to that other variation, black is just up an exchange. Oh, and now also a piece. Yeah, an exchange and a full piece. Yeah, black is completely winning. But let's see, knight takes h7, rook e1, good move, attacking here. Alright, knight f6, knight takes f6, guarding h7, g3, rook takes f1, king g2, queen takes, yeah, b2, attacking the rook, attacking on b2. There's also rook g1 check, you know, there's also queen f2 check, checkmate actually, or rook f2 checkmate. There's a million threats, and white resign. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, like the video, comment below what you think about the game, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.